Dear friends, my name is Bashir Fadl. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to start a new course, and it's kind of a mixture of two things. It's Linux Administrator and Oracle Database Administrator. Some of you might say, I just want to be an Oracle admin. Why do I need to learn Linux administration? Some of you might say, I just want to be a Linux administrator. Why should I be an Oracle DBA? And some of us don't have a background. We're new to IT altogether. We're like, okay, well, what's the difference or why do we need to know both? Let's start with Linux administration. Linux administration, Linux, of course, is an operating system. Operating system is basically the software that runs your servers, your PC, whatever it is. Uh, every single application in the world, in any company in the world, has to run over an operating system. So whether they have Informatica, whether they have MuleSoft, whether they have Oracle, whether they have SQL Server, it has to run over an operating system. They have to have an OS. So as a Linux administrator, what does that mean? It means there's a lot of job opportunities out there for me. Well, maybe it's on an on-premise server. On-premise means they have it on their office location or the corporate office. Perfect. Maybe they have it on the cloud. Well, guess what? They still need someone that knows the OS, the operating system. So what are some of the things that I learned as an administrator? And let's see how it keys up. It keys up because there's a lot of flavors of Linux, so there's a lot of job opportunities. But also, if I learn Linux administration, the concepts are the same if you're a Unix administrator. They're also the same if you're Windows or an Azure administrator. So by being a Linux administrator, I can also, with a slight tilt, be a Unix administrator, be an Azure Windows administrator. It just takes a little bit more effort to look at the syntax and understand the process differences, but the concepts are exactly the same. As a Linux administrator, as an OS administrator, whether it's Azure, Linux, Unix, some of the things that I need are number one, security. I need to give people access to the system. So creating users, creating profiles, roles, and so on is my responsibility. And that's the same within all the different operating systems. Next is the file system. Every operating system has files that are coming into the server, files that are leaving the server, files that need to be given access to certain people or certain teams, but not the rest of the other teams. So the file system and file manipulation. Number three is scripting. There's always jobs that are scheduled in systems in companies or corporations. We need this file to be sent out at this time, and this file needs to be received, and this one needs to be encrypted. And so there's always scheduled jobs, cron jobs, Windows jobs, whatever you want to call them, but there's always scheduled jobs. So we need to learn that scripting language to be able to kind of schedule those jobs. Number four is performance. We need to monitor the performance of the server. Is it running at optimal speed? Is it slowing down? Is it slowing down? What can I do as an administrator to make sure that we have that optimal speed? Next is, as an administrator, I'm responsible for installing. So the OS itself, we have a new server. Who's going to install the stuff in there? If it's an on-premise server, most likely. As the Linux administrator, I'm be the one who's installing the Linux. I'm going to be the one that's upgrading regularly. I'm going to be the one that's patching on a regular basis. Next is applications. On a server, people don't just buy a server with Linux to look at it. They buy it to install something on it, like a database, like Informatica, like Oracle, like MySQL. So basically, they're installing something on it. And who's responsible for that installation and upgrade and patching of apps that go in there or softwares or platforms? It's me. I'm going to be the one who's going to install the Oracle database in this case, for example. Then, if anything happens to the server, who's responsible for rescuing it and recovering the data? So we're responsible as administrators for backing up and restoring our OSs, and in this case, the Linux server. Also, in cases of larger corporations, you might have concepts of failover, replication, and depending on the loads and so on, load balancing. So that's a big part of what we do, and also dealing with external systems such as printers and emails and so on. So Linux administrator is the boss. We're the ones that control, because the applications fall within our realm. They're installed on our servers. We're responsible for everything, basically, all the software that runs in the company, because it runs over an OS, an operating system. So hopefully that gives you a general idea of what the Linux administrator does. Usually, a best example, an optimal example of where you can learn Linux is with a database such as Oracle. Actually, there was a contract, I think about 8 years ago or 10 years ago, where Oracle bought one of the bigger hardware companies, Solaris, if I remember correctly, and they just had that called unbreakable, bond between Oracle and Linux and so on. So again, the best way to learn Oracle with all the different threads and multi-threading is within a Linux environment. So you can see all the details and the background processes, very granular, and have a good understanding of it. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of background of what a Linux administrator does. Oracle, why they bind together. And I'll give you a fun example about 2009, where I was working in a company. And the first thing that I did is look at their schedules. And I found that on every 30 days on their Windows servers, they were patching, they were upgrading. And for about 6 or 7 years, they never touched one of their servers. And I was like, oh, red flag. We need to patch that one. And they're like, oh, well, you better be careful. I said, why? They said from 2003 until 2009, so 6 years, we've never touched or restarted that server, which is kind of scary for you as an administrator for so many reasons. But to think about it from an operating system, it is amazing that nobody hacked into it, or it's running that smooth, and it's that stable that it could run for 6 years with something as user intensive as Oracle, and for 6 years it's just running smoothly. So it goes to show you how solid of an OS it is. Hopefully, guys, enjoyed this journey. Looking forward to seeing the next sessions.